sense of kind of what the landscape is. So there are 629 public four-year colleges in the United States with an enrollment of about 6.8 million students. Lots of schools. There are 1,485 private four-year colleges, and they have about 4.2 million students, and this is undergraduate. So there are lots of colleges out there to choose from, and one of the big distinctions is public versus private, and again, we're just talking about four-year. We hear a lot about how hard it is to get into colleges, and I wanted to give everybody a context to put that in. Acceptance rates across the board range from about 94% to 5%. So that's of the students who are applying to these public and private four-year colleges, how many are actually accepted. So you can see that there are some colleges that accept quite a bit, 94%, and there are some that are much more competitive to get into. But in general, the average acceptance rate is about 65%. So sometimes that's shocking to people because when you read the newspaper or when you hear about someone with a 4.0 not getting in, that kind of flies in the face of this acceptance rate. But of course, keep in mind this is an average, so there are wide differences. Okay, so just to set up the stage, there's also different types of colleges within the public and private. You could have a college that focuses on STEM. You could have a college that's a private liberal arts, more of a well-rounded humanities perspective. So that's kind of the landscape. Moving, though, to focus on what I think is really the area where we see a lot of attention is in the selective colleges. So back to the selective colleges slide. There are different ways of categorizing these types of colleges. Barron's uses 4 categories for selectivity and considers its category 1 as most competitive. And what that means is these are the hard ones to get into, probably the ones that you hear about in the news. There are about 82 colleges that fit into this category, and they both are public and private. So these are the ones you hear about, the Ivy Leagues, UC Davis fits in there, University of Michigan, you've got Stanford, Santa Clara probably is fitting in now. So these are the ones where competition is the fiercest. The rates, the acceptance rate, the admissions rates at these colleges has really been declining over the last several decades. More and more students are applying to college. More and more students want to be going to these colleges. So as they get more applications, they're not growing in the amount of students they can really admit in any significant way. So what's happened is it's just become more competitive. So in general, I like to say those selective colleges have about an average of a 10% acceptance rate. And there's some special things about these schools. If you can get in, they're fabulous because they open the door for you in many ways. They have worldwide name recognition, a great reputation. Oftentimes, they have a policy of meeting 100% of demonstrated need. If a student's able to get in but can't afford to go there, many of these schools, especially the private ones, have the endowment to pay the difference for them. A couple things, though, are that there's not a lot of merit money that's often offered at this level because all of the students who are applying at this level, if they're competitive, they probably would be getting merit money, meaning all the special things they do, grade-wise, activity-wise, so there's not really money for that. And when you're competing at this level, sometimes it can feel, how should I put it, like the process is opaque. You don't know why some people got in versus others. And so it's just that the applicant pool is so qualified, and so the question is, how do you set yourself apart if you want to be going into these schools? So we actually have a question that we thought we'd poll for you guys at this point, and it's being posted now. So, thinking of selective colleges and applying, and you can see the question there in general, what's the most important part of an application? So is it test scores, grades, classes taken, or the essay? Okay, that's okay. We're still getting up and running. Bear with us. Okay, do we have the results?
So we actually need to, this is the right one.
Okay.
in general, what is the most important part of the application?
Yes.
60% say grade.
Okay.
50% say grade. And then it looks like a few people think test scores have to be taken or the essay.
Okay, interesting. So in general, and it's going to vary across schools, but for the most part, the most important part of an application is, believe it or not, the classes that are taken. Because that transcript shows over time how you're challenging yourself, time management skills, how much rigor you can handle. And that kind of leads us in. The other things are still important, but in general, colleges are going to look at, have you availed yourself of the difficult classes? So that's going to bring us to our next slide, which is what competitive colleges are really looking for. So as you can see, I've got the first point here is the challenging course load. So that goes to the classes taken. If you're at a high school that offers 30 APs, which is what it's like in my town, you want to be a student, if you're going for these competitive colleges, who's taking advantage of those offerings and taking many of those AP classes. It doesn't look good to a college if that's being offered and you don't take a lot of them. So taking those weighted classes, especially in your areas of interest and strength. So if you're going to be a STEM person, taking APs in the sciences and in the math, really important. Secondarily, demonstrating mastery in those subject matters. So taking the hard classes and doing well. That doesn't mean necessarily that you always need to be getting straight A's. It's better to take the hard classes and maybe get a B than it is to take the easy classes and get the A. You want to look like you're challenging yourself and taking advantage of what's being offered. Strong test scores comes in next. I'd say those first two in general count for about 80% of what most colleges are looking for in an applicant. Strong test scores are also a way to distinguish yourself. And in that case, it's not just SAT or ACT, which, by the way, all colleges will accept either, but they're looking for what your AP scores are. Also looking for what subject test scores are. Subject tests aren't always required for applying for colleges, but in this category of competitive colleges, sometimes it is. Sometimes schools will even tell you which subject tests you need. In general, for the UCs, subject tests are recommended. For certain majors, it's a good idea to do it. So you can distinguish yourself by taking all these. Sorry, there's a lot of them, and showing your ability. But there's also some other things, maybe more esoteric, that colleges are looking for in terms of characteristics of students. Intellectual curiosity. And how students can show that is, pursuing their interests outside of school. Maybe that's an internship. Maybe that's a summer program. Leadership, and that doesn't just necessarily mean that you have a job within a club. Sometimes that could be that you are working and you've moved up in your work by getting a raise, or you are now in charge of mentoring someone or training someone. Maybe you don't have a specific job within a club, but maybe you're in charge of recruiting new members. So showing that you've had a demonstrated level of involvement over time and have been able to take on more responsibility. The essays are also important, more so even for private schools, I'd say, than public schools. That's a place where you can show your intellectual curiosity, give examples of your leadership, show how well you write, your thought process. Maybe you've heard the term, show your authentic voice. Colleges want to get to know the applicant, so here's a way to get to know them. But also activities that make you stand out. So things that really distinguish you are, do you spend your time outside of school pursuing hobbies that, you really get a lot out of? Or have you used your summer to try on a subject that you're interested in? And that's where, again, like a pre-college program at UC Davis could really make a difference. I'm interested in marine biology or vet science, and I tried it out over the summer and learned this about myself, and it gave me the confidence to know, yes, this is what I want to do. So those are the types of things that can really stand out. And by the way, there's often essays in private schools about what did you do over the summer and what did you learn from it. So it's really great to have something to put in there. So we have a poll at this point too, another question that we'll be posting. So thinking about applying to competitive colleges, when is the best time to start working on college applications? So I'm curious to see what you guys think. Is it senior year, junior year, summer before senior year or continuously throughout high school. So what do we think? It looks like most people are saying junior year. Okay. Yeah. So, and you can obviously, this is going to be up to families, but in general, what I like to say is really start working on your applications the summer before your senior year. I like to tell students to spend their junior year focusing on grades and focusing on college search, learning about the colleges, what is a right fit for you, spending time getting your list together. Once you know your list, and that usually comes into play by the end of the junior year, that's when it's really smart to start working on college applications, because then you know what your deadlines are, what types of applications you're doing, how many essays are required. And so what's nice too in that regard is that the common application, which is where about 600 mostly private but also public school applications are, those become available starting August 1st to work on. And same with the UC application, you can start working on that August 1st. So it's nice to get a lot of your data entry done, your essays done over the summer, and that way when you start your senior year, you have time to focus on classes and grades and also having some fun. So, all right, thanks. So moving on, now we're going to get into the trends. So that was setting the stage. Let's talk about some of the trends. Trend number one is I have seen over the years that I've been doing this an increasing use of waitlists. What this means is about 40% of the four-year colleges are telling students that they're not ready to say yes or no to them. They're putting them on a wait list, and it's a way to help colleges fill their classes. You know, more and more students are applying to more and more colleges, and so a college doesn't know if you're going to be saying yes to them or not. So as an insurance, you know, they'll keep a wait list so that as people they've admitted say no, turn them down, they can take people off the wait list. So for many students, this is kind of a deflating feeling, is, you know, you don't get in, you get put on a wait list. But I look at it as not a terrible thing. They didn't say no, so don't take it as a negative. But keep in mind that if you are placed on a wait list, there are some things you're going to need to do. You need to opt in oftentimes. Sometimes you need to fill out a little form or write an essay. You need to check your emails so that if you get offered a spot, you don't miss the chance to say yes to it. Regardless, though, if you're placed on a wait list, you're still going to need to commit to another school by May 1st. May 1st is always the deadline of when you need to decide by. So you're not going to hear back from the schools you're on the wait list on until after that, right? Because that's when they'll hear if there's spot. In general, that's usually how it works. So realize you'll still have to pick another school and pay the deposit, which means you may lose that deposit if you get in off the wait list to the school you want. But still, you need to have an option. But when you're on the wait list, there's some things that can help you kind of make your case. You want to stay in contact with the school, especially the private schools. Email them, email the admissions rep. This is my first choice. I really want to be at this school. You know, could I submit some additional information, some more letters of rec, a new test that I just took? I just won this award. Let me tell you about it. The more you make your case, all else being equal, the better shot you have at getting in. In general, an average of about 30% or one-third or so of people get in off the wait list, but realize that's an average. That depends on the school. Some schools, different years, it's going to be different too. So I don't want to give people false hope, but I also want you to realize that there is the possibility of getting in off the wait list. Nowadays, all the UCs except for Merced are using wait lists. But just so that we can keep going with this idea of submitting things to make your case, let's do another poll here. So as we talked about, you can maybe ask if you could submit additional letters of rec. How do you decide who to ask for letters of rec? So our question number 3, when asking for letters of recommendation, in general it's best to, and you guys can see the choices, only ask teachers who've given you A's, ask your favorite teacher, ask teacher from your hardest classes, ask teachers that you have for subjects you want to major in, and it looks like, let's see, people are voting. Great, you guys, yes. You want to be asking the teachers who can comment on what you're going to be studying in college, so the answer is D. You know, and there's some finesse to this, because if you do think it's a teacher who's not going to write you a good letter of rec. Don't ask them. But in general, that's the perfect case, because your letters can really inform the college about what your performance may be like in college. And if you're planning to study sciences, you want to ask your science teacher to comment on your ability. It would look strange to a college if you're saying you want to major in science and then you're asking, your history teacher for a letter of recommendation. So it's a good idea to ask for letters of rec from the teachers in the classes that you want to be majoring in. And in general, too, those will be your weighted classes most likely, because you try to take the honors and the AP classes in the areas you want to study in. Okay, trend number 2, definitely seeing more and more students applying early and more colleges offering different early deadlines. So once you spend your junior year figuring out the colleges you want to apply to, then you'll know which colleges offer these early deadlines. And just a quick review, maybe you are all familiar with the difference between early action and early decision. Early action is you apply to a school early. You can apply to many schools early action. You hear back. So early means in November, by the way, usually by November 1st or November 15th. And then you hear back from the school mid to late December. You don't have to decide if you're going to go to that school until that May 1st deadline. Early decision, on the other hand, you only apply to one college early decision, because what it means when you apply early, again, November 1st or November 15th, depending on the school, is that if you get in, you're agreeing to go there. It's a binding decision, and it really is. You have to sign something. Your parents have to sign something. You don't ever want to apply early decision and back out. There are some reasons you can back out if financially this is not going to meet your needs. But so what I have seen and what many counselors have seen is that more and more students are doing this. And part of the reason why is this next point is that you can usually increase your chance of acceptance. That 20% rate I got from NACAC, it's a survey that's conducted, and that's for applying early decision. It's going to vary school by school, but if you think about it, in general, there's a smaller applicant pool that's ready to apply in November of their senior year. So you've just kind of made it easier from a numbers perspective because there are fewer applicants you're competing against. The caveat is that these tend to be the more qualified students because they are ready to apply in November. But all the conferences that I go to, all of the tours that I'm on, all the people that I speak with, in general, if you're ready to apply early, it's a good idea to do it. And the reason why is because of this third point, is you in general have a better chance of getting merit money, scholarship money by applying early, because the amount of money that's being doled out hasn't been distributed yet. You're getting to that pot of money sooner. So because it usually means that you can get in a little bit easier, not always, and because you have a better chance of getting money, more and more students are doing this. And as more and more students are doing this, more and more schools are offering this. So it's not uncommon to see a school, like an Occidental, for example, that'll have not just early action and not just early decision, but they'll even have a second round of early decision. And there's many variations on this. Stanford, for example, has restrictive early action, which means you only apply to one school early action. Most of the Ivy Leagues, it's just early decision. In general, though, what this means is that the whole application cycle has been front-loaded. More and more of it is happening in the fall. It's not January, where the crunch time is in the senior year. So again, you'd be applying in November, and you'd hear back, usually, by end of December. What could happen is you could get in, which is great. Maybe you're done then. If you got into your school that you want, great, you're done. Maybe you didn't get in. That's a terrible thing to find out, but that's also useful information for, do I need to go back to the drawing board and add some more schools to my list before January deadlines pass, because maybe it's more of a competitive year than I realized. The third thing that can happen here is deferral. You could apply early. Colleges aren't ready to make a decision about you yet, and they kick you over to the regular applicant pool. That's called deferral, and then you'll be hearing back when all the other January applicants hear back. That's not the end of the world. Just like being placed on a wait list, you can check in with the school to see if you can make your case. Can you submit more materials? Send them an email, tell them how much you want them. All those things can help. But talking about merit money, I thought we'd do another poll here about how just expensive are schools. Merit money is a way that many families are making college affordable. And so the question that we have now is the most expensive college in terms of total cost of attendance is, and I've got some choices here. Notice they're all private schools. And it changes year to year. A few years ago it was Sarah Lawrence. This year, do you guys have a sense? So is it Stanford, USC, Pepperdine, or Harvey Mudd? Okay. And realize that when I say total cost of attendance, that's tuition, room and board, a lot of miscellaneous fees, book supplies, things like that. I see that most people are saying Stanford. The answer is actually Harvey Mudd, and it's about $67,255 a year. Now that doesn't mean that's what students pay to go there, because many students will get some money, but in general, engineering schools do also tend to be more expensive. So Harvey Mudd, it's one of the engineering, it's an all-male engineering school, part of the Claremont Colleges, about 900 undergrad students. Engineering programs tend to need more equipment, capital, things like that. But so that's the one this year. Like I said, it's been Sarah Lawrence before, it's been New York University before. Okay, next trend, number 3. Spring admits are on the rise. I've been working with students who get an acceptance, and then when they don't, if they're not careful to read the fine print, they'll see it's not for the fall, which is what they applied to, but it's for the spring. So this is mostly a private school issue. It's a way for colleges to kind of manage their and fill their freshman class. What they know is that some students don't make it past the first semester or first quarter, and so it's nice to have a whole slew of students that are coming in mid-year to fill those spots. What I'm seeing happen is that some of my students are being offered enrollment programs for that semester that they're not at school. So maybe go study, for example, at a program in Geneva, Switzerland, and those can be quite expensive. So it's not a bad option. It's just not, I think, what many students were prepared for. So something to think about is that this is a possibility. And it's not the end of the world. It's a great option for many students. Maybe take that semester off. Maybe do something value-added. But I do caution my students to consider the social implications, because what happens is you're out of step with your peers. You're not starting when everybody else is starting. And for someone maybe who is not as adept at transitions, that can be tough if you don't have everybody around you all starting at the same time. I'm seeing this happen a lot at schools like USC, Chapman, SMU, places like that. Okay, on to trend number 4, gap year programs, or sometimes I like to call this the Malia Obama effect. Maybe you're familiar with this, but she deferred going to Harvard for a year to take a gap year. So I think it's really put gap years more on the map. Very prevalent in other countries. England and Australia have been doing this for a while. Basically what it means is that instead of starting college after high school, you take a year off, or sometimes a semester off, it depends, and do something value-added usually. There are structured programs that can help you try on what you're interested in, work, earn money, go abroad, practice your language. It can give students a chance to, focus, get the maturity, have a breather. What we've seen is attendance at gap year fairs has really increased. It's almost tripled since 2010. What I tell my students is, if this is something they're interested in, is that it's a really good idea to go through the application process still as a senior, because that's when you have access to your transcripts and letters of rec, and you're kind of in the zone. And then once you see your acceptances, defer. Say, hey, I'm going to be taking a gap year. Word of caution though, not all colleges allow for deferrals, and there are different procedures for getting the deferral. So when I work with students, what we do is we make sure if gap year is something that's going to be on their agenda, like I worked with a student who was going to go do Rotary in Brazil for a year, we were only applying to colleges that would allow him to defer if he got in, and we did make it work. Okay, moving on, trend number 5, something that's becoming increasingly important is to show that you're interested. As a student, many private schools, and perhaps you guys are aware of this, they track how much students are interested in their school. what they do is they can take, they have analytical programs, computer programs, where they can track how often you're on the website, how long you're on the website. They look at how many times you've been in contact with your rep. Have you attended a college information night? Have you signed up and gone on a formal tour? Are you following them on social media? All of those things show demonstrated interest, which is a way for colleges to gauge possibly how likely that student is to say yes if they are given an acceptance. And so what happens is, because students are applying to more and more schools, colleges don't know if that's going to be a student that says yes to them or not. And colleges care about their yield, which is of the acceptances they give out, how many students actually come. And so the higher their yield, the higher that number who actually do come, the better they meet their benchmarks for performance. They can also borrow money at a lower interest rate. That's kind of a special, important number, their yield. So if you give them a reason to think that you're really interested, that you weren't just, surfing the web or, on a fly thinking, I'll see if I can get in here, that's going to, all else being equal, give you a better shot at getting in compared to a similarly situated candidate who hasn't done those things. So it helps colleges manage their yield, like I said, and you don't have to spend a lot of money and necessarily go to these colleges to do this. Sometimes you can just go on their website. Well, not just sometimes. You can just go on their website and sign up to receive information, and that's another way to demonstrate interest. And if you want to see which colleges do this, you can look on College Board and see what are the important characteristics for a college in terms of the application, and they'll say where demonstrated interest is in terms of that. The Ivies don't do this. They have enough interest. But at this point, let's also talk another poll about social media then, talking about following schools on social media. So how is social media used in college admissions? So is it used to check up on students and make sure they're not posting inappropriately? Is it to track demonstrated interest, learn more about students, or all of the above? Let's see what you guys think. Very good. Oh, I see a change. Okay. Yes. Oh, this is fun. I'm watching real time. Okay, yeah, it's all of the above. It has become an integral part of college applications and the admission process. It's a way for colleges to see how interested a student is, like we just said. They also don't want to see students doing anything that's going to be unsavory. That's not a good indication of what a student's going to be like on their campus. But it's a way for them also to reach out and learn more about students, your hobbies, your interests. Maybe you've heard about, there's a whole kind of movement now towards kind of creating these videos rather than essays in a way, called Zeme. Students can make a website and show pictures and do a video of some of the things they do outside of school. Maybe they're into martial arts. They can show one of their martial arts videos. So it's a way for colleges to kind of learn the unique characteristics of their applicants. And that can really help a student distinguish themselves. Okay, trend number 6, something I think is very valuable, is more and more colleges are moving towards being test optional. So there's all this testing that we talked about that you need to do, but there's a kind of a counter balance to it, that there's a trend towards having colleges not use the scores as much or at all to admit students. So you could check out fairtest.org and look for their list of test optional schools. There are about 925 colleges. It's been growing. And of those, about 265 are those top tier, most selective or selective. So it's not just that it's a way for colleges to, admit more students. It's that there's a recognition that test scores don't tell the whole story. Some students have test anxiety. Some students had a bad breakfast the day of testing. Some students don't have the money to pay for a lot of test prep, even though now there's a bunch of free. So it's just trying to look more holistically at students. So for many students, this is really a welcome trend. Oftentimes what it is you can sometimes have a choice to submit your scores or choose the test optional path and submit alternate materials. Maybe that's a paper you've written, or a research paper, or an exam. So it really depends on the school. Sometimes it's that you have additional essays. So some of the schools that do this, Pitzer, part of the Claremont Colleges, Lewis and Clark, American University, George Washington University, Bard. It really can help alleviate test anxiety. So if you're a student who doesn't feel like test taking is your strong suit, make sure you've got a test optional school on your college list. Okay, and then the last trend, just like everything in the world these days, is globalization. More and more students from the U.S., we have a lot of international students coming to study here, but more and more students are applying outside the U.S. It's really popular for good reason. One of the reasons is, in a globalized world, it's great to have some experience living abroad, learning another language. In particular, a lot of my students are interested in England. There are, Oxford, Cambridge, King's College. They're very well regarded. They're very competitive, have a great reputation, but you can finish college in 3 years. So they're 3-year programs, and you really hit the ground running, starting studying with your subject matter right away. So it's almost like a baby graduate school. So for students who are really, focused and they know what they want and they want to get this done, it can serve a purpose. Save money too if it's 3 years versus 4. I have a lot of students interested in Canada, University of British Columbia, University of Waterloo, McGill. Sometimes you can go to a school in Canada for cheaper than you can in the U.S. because not just the dollar and the exchange rate, but the tuition is less, especially compared to private schools. And something to keep in mind is even if you're going abroad to a country that isn't an English-speaking country, sometimes the degree programs are taught in English. So this is just a great way for a student to stand out. It's something different on your resume when you're going on to look for a job. I will say one thing to keep in mind, though, is that realize that may sometimes be a challenge when you come back, if you want to come back to the United States, is that it may not be as known of a quantity, some of these colleges, and then the alumni network that you have is in a different place that may not help you as much to get a job here, but still, it's an exciting option, something to consider. Okay, so that's the trends. Just to quickly summarize, and then Liz is going to talk about the program. Keep in mind it's good to be informed about the application process and the selection process. The more you know about how this works, the better you can get the outcome that you want for yourself. So that means, understanding which schools are looking for what, making sure that you're asking for the right letters of rec, making sure that your essay is really showing all your unique characteristics. Do those interesting things over the summer to help you stand out. It's important to find the right fit for you. It may or may not be one of the most competitive schools. You want to go somewhere where you're going to be able to succeed and be happy. Being happy somewhere is how you're going to be more likely to succeed. So, looking at the size of the school, the location, the weather, that can make a difference, what kind of programs they have, what the academics are like, how challenging, what class size is like, and of course cost. And then starting applications in the summer is really key. That can really make a difference for seniors so that they don't have those stressful periods when they've got an exam or a paper due and they've also got an application deadline. And then we'll have time for questions, I believe, after Liz goes through her part. So thank you, and turn it over to Liz.
Wow, I didn't realize how much information you need for students to just apply for schools. It's a lot more complicated than when I was lost.
Unfortunately, it is. Wish it weren't.
So I'm Liz Price. I'm the program administrator. I think a lot of you, if you're asking questions through the website, you're probably receiving responses through me. So I just wanted to go through really quickly just a couple of the program logistics for the UC Davis pre-college program. And as you can see on your screen, the regular application deadline is ending at the end of this month, March 31st, but we will have late applications. We are accepting late applications as long as there's space open for the program. We have a residential and commuter option available. I know on the website it says that the price is $6,900, but that actually includes the program tuition and the housing fee. So if for some reason you feel like you're local and you want to, you can bring your student to and from the program, then that kind of cuts down on the cost a little bit. And I know that UC Davis has a very strong brand name within Sacramento and Davis, so that's an option as well. And there's currently still room in all 4 majors. The majors that we have is the veterinary science. We have the coastal and marine science program, which actually is based in Bodega Bay. We have the innovation and entrepreneurship and the mind and brain major. So those, they're all very different. I think that the students that are looking at these, they have kind of an inkling of what they're attracted to, and I think it will be really helpful for the students to kind of be exposed to the faculty in these majors, and they'll also have access to people like Jennifer who does college admissions counseling. And I think this program is really great in that we have kind of like a holistic approach to this program. We're going to have leadership classes. We're going to have strengths, so the students will actually be able to test what their strengths are and use that for their college application process. And that's kind of a really important thing for somebody young who's forming their whole future to know. So I think really this is going to be a great opportunity for any student that's interested in it. And I'm going to just post my contact information here. My name is Elizabeth. My nickname is Liz. I go by either. And my phone number and my email is up there, and along with the website, which you probably already looked at, but it doesn't hurt. And I just wanted to see if any of you had any questions for Jennifer or for myself about the program, and see what you, maybe what brought you here. I think we have actually a couple of questions that we got beforehand from a couple of people.
Yeah. So one of the questions that we have had is how much interaction will students get to have with professors? And that's a really important thing that gets to happen at this pre-college program, is they're going to be with professors about 4 hours a day during the week. So there's a chance to work with someone in the field who, has been doing research and knows what's going on. It really can help almost mentor the students, give them some feedback on, where to head, what to take. That's really valuable, especially as you go forward, not just in your career, but, for a student in general, to start helping them focus for college. What type of major, what type of program would be good. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of interaction, one-on-one, hands-on in the class. We also got a question about how financial aid works for colleges. Speaking, of college costs, this is always something that's on people's mind. It's not a pleasant part of the process necessarily, but essentially there are 2 pots of money that are available for students applying to colleges. There's money from the federal government or state government, and that tends to be need-based. So if a family has eligibility based on their income, that they would get money offered through the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Then there's also school-based money, which is what I keep referring to, and I probably should have explained this at the beginning, but maybe you'll know, as merit money. So what that means is it's not need-based, it's not based on income eligibility, it's based on the cool or amazing or unique things that a student does. So some colleges are looking for leadership. Some colleges are looking for a high GPA. Some colleges are looking for someone who's overcome a hardship. So those are essentially 2 pots of money. And then what can be offered is loans or grants. Grants you don't pay back. Loans you do, obviously. The FAFSA is both. So the FAFSA is always available in October. So you'd be filling that out in October of your student's senior year. The sooner you can turn it in, the better, because some money is first come, first serve, but it's not due until March. And the way the FAFSA works, you can even get an idea now, if you guys want to, of how much you qualify for in terms of aid, because there's 5 things that go into this calculation of eligibility: adjusted gross income, size of the household, age of the older parent, how many students are in college, and then assets. So the form takes into account those 5 things and then comes up with what they think a family would be able to contribute towards college and compares that to the total cost of attendance. And the difference is what they'd offer you in terms of loans or grants. So you can actually go and look up a quick EFC link and see how much you might be eligible for.
Sure. And so I think Sandy was asking a question about scholarships for low-income students for the pre-college program.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that's a great question. I should have mentioned that earlier. We actually do offer full scholarships for this program. We are limited to a number of full scholarships that we can offer, but for us, it's low income, so it is need-based scholarships. So I think you were saying merit-based.
Yeah.
So ours is needs-based, and it will cover the cost of tuition and housing, and that also includes food. So basically what you would be responsible for is making sure that your student could get here, and then after they get here, we would be taking care of the rest. Obviously, you would probably want to include a little bit extra spending money for them for the excursions, but as far as the cost of tuition and the cost of housing and the meals, that would all be covered by our program. And I think there are some other programs out there, and they don't necessarily go through that full extent, but we do for our pre-college program.
And about scholarships in general, this is something on many people's minds, and there are some places to go for private scholarships, and it's worth checking out just to see what's available. So there's something called fastweb.com and myscholarly.com. It's a free database of scholarships that match students up with scholarships they may want to apply for. Anytime you have to pay to look through scholarships, don't do it. So these are free, and you go online and you fill out a form real fast. You say what you need it for, and then they'll show you, oh, maybe you should apply for the PG&E scholarship. And here's the deadline, and here's what you have to do, and here's the money you could earn. So sometimes a lot of families can piece together money that way too, just in general. But one more thing about the merit money for schools is, and this is not for summer programs, but for college, if you want to get a sense of what you may be eligible for in terms of scholarship money from a college, all colleges by law are required to have something called a net price calculator on their website, in a different place on every website. But you can go to their website, find the net price calculator. It's going to ask for some information about you, your family, your student, and based on that information, the college will spit out for you what you're likely to be offered in the way of merit money. And that can tell you if then it makes sense for you to apply to that college, if that college will be generous for you. So it's not a binding thing, but it can give you an idea. Well, it says that it's, I don't know, $30,000 a year, but my son will qualify for a $20,000 a year scholarship. We should apply here. So,
great. That's wonderful. Did anybody have any other questions that they wanted to share with us? Doesn't look like it. Well, I know it's a lot of information to digest. If you do have questions about this program, and you can definitely contact me directly. If there are questions for Jennifer, I will forward them to her so that she can kind of answer some of those. But we appreciate you taking time out of your Friday to join us. And hopefully we'll be hearing from you soon. All right. Well, thank you so much again, and we will we'll be talking to you soon. All right. Take care. Thanks. Bye.